everybody. This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Boy, we are loaded up on the program today. The great Quincy week continues as Caleb Calhoun, in case you didn't tune in yesterday, has had his baby, and Quincy is part of the world, a week old now. John Adams, a little bit older, fills in for Caleb Calhoun as our weekly guest. This is his time anyway, so John steps right in there. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thanks for asking.
Well, we've got a lot to get to today, and this is a big program because we're going to discuss the keys to Tennessee winning a College World Series. We're going to discuss Tennessee and Nico and the fact that I don't think some people respect him. Also, key players in the College World Series. We're everywhere. Tons of things to cover today. But first, John, I got a bone to pick with you. So for those that don't know or haven't seen yet, John was named the top columnist in the state, and I finished second to John of the Tennessee Sports Writers Association of America. So I would just like to congratulate you, John, and tell you that you did a great job, and I did the best I could, and I'm sorry that I couldn't hold a candle to you.
Yeah, I don't think they spelled out the gap between first and second this year, but Grand Canyon comes to mind. But congratulations on second place. That's
so.
Good.
Am I the ACC and you're the SEC, or am I? I may be more like the All-American Conference.
It's kind of what I had in mind, but they're getting better.
Yeah, and it was the Milton column for the record. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put this up on for our poll question. Whose columns do you like more, John Adams or Dave Hooker? We'll throw that up there. Key players for Tennessee, but I'm willing to admit that John is way more learned covering baseball than I am. So we were discussing this yesterday, but I want to share it with you, the listener, for those that might be a casual college baseball fan like me. And that is, how important is it to stay out of the losers bracket? It's going to be a 7:00 game, Florida State. Not sure what you know about them, but just to stay out of the losers bracket, especially game one, how important is that?
It's important in any tournament. One thing about the World Series, if you get in the winner's bracket, there's enough space between games that it kind of accentuates that advantage. So you've got to, you can win with fewer pitchers, and that's a huge advantage. Double elimination. These tournaments are so tricky with, you go into the losers bracket or the winners bracket. It's not. I don't know. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but sometimes it doesn't always seem fair to me. Putting it to you lose one game, okay, you're like descend into the abyss, and now you got to climb out of that, and then there's so much pressure on. I don't know any other way to do it, but I think I mean, do you have any ideas on it? How would you do it differently?
No, this is a whole different conversation, but I'm of the belief that you need to take, you and I discussed this, you like it, okay, even that's fine, but I think you need to take the postseason, blow it up, and start all over. But that's me. I think it needs to end the way it does in the College World Series. I love the way it ends with the last 8 games, kind of like college basketball. I don't like the regular season, but I like the way it ends with the postseason. I just think some postseason, the intermediate postseason levels could use a little bit of tweaking. But I mean, it seems to be incredibly popular, so everybody seems to love it.
It's really getting the popularity has really increased in the last 5 years. I mean, I never used to watch college baseball, and now the college baseball tournament has become one of my favorite events. I watched a lot of games in the super regional too, but so many of the games are so compelling, and you have what happens. You have so many swings and momentum. I never feel a team is out of the game. Home run ball helps. And also the thing about it is you don't have the same level of near perfection you do at Major League Ball. A routine ground ball in Major League Ball, it's swallowed up. It's an easy out. You don't even need to follow the path of the throw. College baseball, whereas they make spectacular defensive plays, they will also occasionally botch a simple routine ground ball or maybe lose a pop-up every now and then. I think that adds to the intrigue or maybe the adventure from one play to another. But I just never feel like, well, we saw it in Tennessee Super Regional. It jumps out in game 2 to a 4-0 lead. It hits 3 home runs. It's got its best starting pitcher going. You think, well, I mean, this is supposed to be a runaway. And in fact, Evansville comes back and wins handily, if not for a late rally for Tennessee. I mean, they made it close, but yeah. So to me, it is an exciting sport, and it maintains the suspense a lot longer than some other sports.
I agree with that completely, and I will say this too. I was hesitant to be a big baseball fan back, about 10, 15 years ago when they had the bats, the trampoline bats, because I thought a lot of the numbers were manufactured. Now, 2 or 3 years from now, I may be proven wrong, but I don't think that's the case this year, John. I think the home runs are legit, and I don't feel like they've juiced the bat to make for more exciting plays.
Well,
we might find out in 2 or 3 years that they have, but I don't think they have.
Well, one factor in it right now is, and this is pretty, umpires are evaluated now. They've got all these metrics that evaluate umpires, computer systems. Umpires are not, as a rule, don't give pitchers the corner of the plate.
Yes.
And that is tightening up the strike zone. Pitchers get behind on counts. They have to come in with a fastball, and boom, there it goes off the scoreboard. Yeah, I think in those old days, and when LSU hit those 188 home runs, you almost needed body armor if you're playing in the infield. I mean, it was really dangerous.
Well, I'm not lying. I mean, there were times where I was like, I felt uncomfortable watching it.
Would you want to play third base?
I mean, it felt like, I don't want to sound morbid, but there were times where I was like, it felt like the week after Dale Earnhardt Sr. passed away, you were just like waiting for something bad to happen. It was, I don't know. I had it maybe a little too strong for you.
Yeah, I think it kind of cast it all over the entire show. Let's move on rapidly from that, Dave. And I do.
Brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
You told me to move on, so I did. More baseball talk, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. You can stop by there and pick up a free Off the Hook Sports t-shirt just by saying hello. Stop by, tell Scott that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports sent you. Get in there, and we'll soon have an opportunity for you to register for a free hot tub. Cooper, what do people need to do if they want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you, Coop. Let's get to some key players for the Vols in this College World Series? First down, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right. First down is a young man named Christian Moore. I'd say everybody knows who he is. Pretty darn good player. How much do you like him? You've covered the majors as well. What do you think about him, John?
Well, I'm really not good at projecting guys to the major leagues because I don't know how they will handle big league pitching. But Christian Moore, he's a key because he's Tennessee's best player. And when you get to playoff time, your best player has to play well. He's carried Tennessee at times on a weekend series. He ended up, I think it's hard to keep up with his home run count. I think he's got 31, maybe 32 home runs. He's one of the top 5 players and position players in college baseball. Got good speed. He's strong. He's built kind of a little bit like a linebacker. I mean, this guy looks like he could help the Vols out at Neyland Stadium. And he really worked on his game and worked on his strength and conditioning in the offseason. He's really worked hard to get better. This guy was a high school pitcher and has a really good arm. So Tennessee obviously needs him to play well. Stars need to be stars in a College World Series.
Yep. All right. Let's see who's next. Second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Oh, yeah, Coop. What about Drew Beam?
Drew Beam is Tennessee's certainly best pro prospect as a starter. Just 2 years ago, he was in the same 3-man rotation on weekends, SEC games, with Chase Burns and Chase Dolander. Chase Dolander, a top pick. Chase Burns, who transferred to Wake Forest, will be a high pick. Drew Beam will be a pro pick. I think he needs to go a little longer in these World Series. We talked about having a quick hook and taking guys out and pitching a lot of relievers. It really helped things along in Tennessee, particularly because he's game 2 guy. I mean, if you lose the first game and you drop into the second game and loser's bracket, it's lose and go home. Drew Beam has been a second game guy all season, and I think he's very good in that role. For the most part, he's very calm. He handles the pressure well, takes care of business. So I think he's well suited for that role. But he needs to be really sharp. I think needs to be his best. I would like to see, from a Tennessee perspective, I'd like to see him go 6 innings at least. That would really aid Tennessee's pitching cause, particularly if it falls into the loser's bracket. On the other hand, if it wins its first game, the pressure's really on its opponents because now Tennessee comes back in game 2 with its best starter. So a big game from him could go a long way toward enhancing Tennessee's chances of winning the whole thing.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas, another key player and an X factor. Give me 60 seconds. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Just stop by and tell Scott I said hello, and you can pick up a free Off the Hook Sports t-shirt at the showroom in Athens. They deliver everything. It's fantastic. You'll be well taken care of. You'll love it. DynastyPoolsAndSpas.com. DynastyPoolsAndSpas.com, John. The best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right, the key players for the Vols in the College World Series. Game 1, Florida State, Kavaris Tears.
He's one of my favorite players to watch, Dave. He's been in a bit of a slump. Just call it a mini slump. That's the nature of baseball. You don't go even keel. You don't hit 300 every game. You have highs and lows. He was visibly very frustrated after getting out, even though the game was in hand in his last at bat Sunday. Maybe it was because it was his last at bat at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, and he wanted to go out with a hit. But I look for him to break out of that. He hits with power and average, and he's a great right fielder. He wears number 21, which my favorite player of all time was Roberto Clemente, and probably had the greatest arm of all time in baseball. He certainly ranks up there and is in the conversation. Very strong and very accurate. Kavaris Tears does the same thing. I always want to call him Tavares. It's Kavaris Tears. Tricky name. But he is very accurate. He's very quick getting rid of the ball, and then he's got that powerful arm. I think it was a Missouri series where it picked a guy off first base. I assume all these teams will be very well scouted. You are really taking a risk if you try to take an extra base on him. He's just got a big-time arm and a complete player. Dave, in preseason, I wrote, I guess it was mainly into basketball, but the season starts way back in February. I wrote a couple of preseason columns on baseball. One was on Christian Moore and one was on Kavaris Tears. You know how that often works, because I was basically saying what the potential both had for a really big year. Both had worked a lot on their game. Both seemingly had improved. They'd increased their strength, speed too. A lot of times you write those kind of stories and then the player goes out and just doesn't deliver at all. And you're thinking, why did you do that? But both had really good years, and both proved that the work they put in the off season is paying off for them. So that was kind of nice to see that. I just think both really good players, and I look for Kavaris Tears to have a good College World Series.
Absolutely. All right. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right. Lastly, is there an X factor guy? Or an X factor in this first game, 7:00 versus Florida State? Any sort of X factor matchup as you see it? And by the way, I'll have an update on our poll question here momentarily. John, I'm leading. And whose columns do you like better?
Speaks to the intellect of your followers.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Hopefully
let's fire back at John on the message board. This is your chance to fire back at John. All right.
I've had a lot of people firing back at me, Dave. I think, there are a lot, I guess you could say there are a lot of X factors, but I kind of already mentioned it. I think overall defense, assuming the pitchers kind of pitch up to what their ERAs say they are, I think the defense, this is not a situation where you really can be penalized if you don't properly handle a routine play. And if you got a double play set up, you really need to convert it.
You know what I think the X factor is? And this is very subjective. I think it's Tony Vitello's experience. I think that a couple things have happened, especially in the NIL realm, in which he would probably do things a little bit differently. I think that was evident by his press conference in which he said, if you're coming here with your hand out, this isn't the right place. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus because I don't know 100%, but there was a highly publicized recruit that seemed to be injured more times than not, and that I wonder if he was referencing him. I think the X factor is Tony Vitello's wisdom. I think as much as he was liked 3 years ago, 4 years ago, John, he was a good-looking coach with a lot of potential. Now, I think he's proven that he is not just sizzle. Like Bruce Pearl had to prove that. Lane Kiffin has had to prove that because they have sizzle, but you have to prove you have some substance with it. And I think now Tony Vitello, because of his wisdom, has more substance as a coach than he had just 5 years ago. I think he'll handle it better.
Yeah, well, he was that press conference kind of caught me off guard. The timing of it. I do think in baseball you don't have the NIL money that you do in football. Obviously, you don't have a $1 million pitcher out there. However, you still got to spend some money sometimes, and you still need a viable NIL collective. You don't want a guy that's just coming to Tennessee for the money. He wants to be a part of this program. That should be a factor. Go back to the previous season when LSU won the national championship. That national championship was won in the offseason. And I don't know how big of a bidding war it was, but I would think it was somewhat significant. Tennessee and LSU were in the running for 3 players. Tennessee got 1 shortstop. LSU got 2, a power hitter and a pitcher. The pitcher, Paul Skeens, won the national championship for LSU, basically. He was a dominant pitcher. He's already showing that he could become dominant in the major leagues. He's pitching well as a rookie. So it came down with all 3 of those players. It was between LSU and Tennessee. Now, did they make their decision based on money alone? I don't know. And so I can see why Tony Vitello would say that. But I still think Tennessee, when it comes to going after the very top players, I think it will be active in NIL. But I think what it wants to make sure is it's getting the right kind of player who will fit their system and will fit in their dugout. So it's a big picture kind of thing where you need all of that going for you. And I think Tony Vitello really loves the team chemistry with this team. And I think that contributes to their success. You need all that to win a national championship. There are just a lot of things that factor into this. But I do think this team is very close-knit, really pulls hard for each other. But I'm not saying that its other teams didn't either. I think that reflects how, as you pointed to it, Tony Vitello's maturity as a coach. He's in his 7th season as a head coach now. And he realized how much everything kind of matters, and he can prioritize all of that. So I think now when it comes down to a guy he's in the running for, a top prospect maybe, and he likes him, but he kind of questions, will he fit in? And I think that could be the deciding factor when he makes his final decision. Do we want to take a risk on that? I think sometimes still talent can be so overwhelmingly obvious that you got to take a shot on that talent. But you got to factor in other things as well.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit to football because some guy named Nico Iamaleava has been disrespected, at least in my opinion.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
What the H? Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. I love Rick, and you will too. John, Lindy's comes out, and Lindy's has a certain amount of credibility that a lot of these other lists that come out don't have. Lindy's has been doing it for 50-something years. I still remember going and buying the magazine at the grocery store. They don't have Nico in their All SEC preseason top 3. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it has to do with playing time. We've only seen a very, very little of Nico last year as a backup to Joe Milton. And you have some proven quarterbacks in this league. I think I'm prejudiced because I know more about him, I feel like, than just the average sports writer from his time at Tennessee. And I watched him in that Iowa game. I know it's just one game, but, talent trumps experience invariably. And I looked at him as a can't miss player, absolutely can't miss. And so the only quarterback I would put ahead of Nico right now going into the season is Carson Beck of Georgia, because Carson Beck is tremendously accurate. He moves better than a lot of people give him credit for. He's cool under pressure. He's been in big games. But after him, right now, I wouldn't take anybody else in the SEC over Nico, and that includes Quinn Ewers. I know he's had great success at Texas. You can't argue with that. Well, when I watch the two guys play and I just do the eye thing and I say, which quarterback would I rather have right now? I would take Nico. And maybe I will be proven wrong on that. Quinn Ewers is a first-round draft pick. But I think Nico could end up being the first guy taken in the draft when he comes out. I think he has that kind of talent. And Dave, you see guys, and you're not always right about them, but I look back on guys I saw at Tennessee as a freshman on first glance, and one was in a scrimmage. That was Chuck Webb, the running back from many years ago. He was a freshman in '88, mistakenly redshirted. But I still think he's the best running back Tennessee's had. And I thought he was a can't-miss NFL guy. He ended up getting hurt, and that deprived him of what I think would have been a really good NFL career. He was that guy. Peyton Manning was that guy when I saw him in a scrimmage as a true freshman. I just thought he was a sure thing. Those are a couple of guys. And I look at Nico in the same vein. I just think, you go back, Johnny Manziel. I guarantee you, Johnny Manziel didn't make any preseason magazine's first 3 All-SEC teams when he became a starter at Texas A&M. And then he goes out and completes, I think, his first 17 passes against Florida, and everybody is stunned at how good this guy is. So,
John, we didn't even know who he was. Shouldn't the country at least know who Nico is by playing that Iowa game? And how much, I guess what we're asking is the country going to be surprised by Nico? Do they see what we see coming? And I think you're right, they don't. I'm going to play devil's advocate, okay? Because I've been high on Nico for well over a year. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say Iowa was slow. You can't draw any conclusions off of that, John. Come on. What are you talking about? They're a slow Big Ten team.
Yeah, that slow Big Ten team is kind of outdated. Iowa has no offense. I mean, none. It has none.
John and Dave could do okay in that offense.
Yeah. What you do is you hand the ball to somebody and hope the defense falls down en masse on the play.
Yes.
I think with Iowa, you get the ball and you punt it and you wait for the defense to make a play. I think Iowa's best DB was out for that game, but Iowa has a good defense. It really does. And I thought what Nico did against that defense was impressive. You watch him, and that's what I don't get. If you watched him play, perhaps, I don't know what the latest Heisman odds are, but Nico's on the board. And
Yeah,
so
he
the
was,
guy, huh?
and not a long shot either.
No, and so the guys that bet money on this, the guys, I mean, they do their homework because it can cost them if they don't. And so I think that's more significant than maybe a preseason football magazine. I understand why you uh, wouldn't have him in the top three because you've got a guy like Jackson Dart at Ole Miss who's been a 2-year starter, done pretty well. He's gotten better each season. Quinn Ewers, a preseason All-American candidate, certainly. And Carson Beck, of course, maybe the Heisman front runner. But you go back and look at other guys. Tim Tebow. Remember when Tim Tebow played as a freshman, he was kind of an overnight sensation in that third and short, fourth and short, come in, goal line situation. Urban Meyer used him as a situational guy, and he was like, oh my gosh, it takes 3 people to tackle him. And watch out for that jump pass too.
John, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, but there were questions about, well, can he really be a full-time college starter? And then in his first season as a full-time college starter, his second year with Florida, he wins the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm gonna share those odds with you, those Vegas odds, because you're right, John. The guys that bet on it are going to pay a little bit more closer attention than the guys that don't. John's appearance is always brought to you by our great friends at Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
So, John, our poll question, if people want to take part, I'm sure you're not surprised that it's very pro Nico. Do you believe Nico will be elite, very good, good enough, worrisome? Elite, 56%, very good, 44%. I want to go back to something you said. You said that you think there's, a good chance that Nico is the first overall pick, or a good chance? Okay, you restate that, because I tend to agree with that, and I haven't said that before because I kind of thought people would think I was insane because I'm as high on Nico as anybody because of people who I talk to within the program.
Well, I think he could be the number 1 pick. It's impossible to project that. But when I first saw Peyton Manning, I thought, he hadn't even started a game. I thought he could be the number 1 pick because he seemed so advanced for how much football he'd played. The thing about Nico, when I look at really talented guys and you talk about elite guys at any level, there's something different about him. And look at Nico when he runs. You saw it against Iowa. I mean, he just seemed to have an extra sense of where to cut and when to cut. He was kind of weaving his way through the defense near the goal line. He ran for 3 touchdowns, not long runs, just kind of a little thing, but it was exceptional. It was just like the game was kind of in slow motion for him. And I think it's that way with great players. The other thing that struck me about him, it wasn't just his sense of timing of where and when to make that move, was his size and quickness. He's 6'6", and he moves as though he's 5'10". He looks as though he could be a punt returner. Now, of course, he wouldn't be a punt returner because you don't want a 6'6" target out there for headhunters racing down the field. But you know what I mean. He has that ability to make a quick step or two, and he's just elusive. I think this guy is going to be really hard to tackle in the open field. So these are things that I saw in Nico, little things. And certainly his arm, he's got a quick release. He made a cross the field throw that was really significant, I thought, in that game. He's accurate, But all those things combined, he's just a different kind of quarterback, a different kind of players. And I compare him to other SEC quarterbacks that are good and that are Heisman candidates. And I think, well, they can't do that. They can't make that move.
I agree. Who were the other two that Lindy's had ahead of? They had Carson.
Well, Carson Beck, understand.
Sure.
His accuracy, NFL loves that kind of accuracy. He puts the ball in a tight window. So he's way above average. But the other two, Quinn Ewers, I haven't watched him play as much as I have Carson Beck. I've seen most of his games. Quinn Ewers, though, sometimes a play or two just sticks with you and helps form an opinion.
He's got a Brett Favre quality to him.
Yeah, he does. But he also, I go back to the biggest game of his career in that playoff. And when Texas is knocking on the game-winning door, and you got those last two plays, Texas had great receivers. You get one-on-one, and you gotta throw it up there where your guy can get it. It's all about timing and exquisite accuracy. I didn't think he made two good throws there. I thought Carson Beck might have won the game there.
In all this, we're sitting here talking about a quarterback. We haven't even said the A word. Arm. I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that he can throw from different angles, that he has a mega strong arm, or at least strong enough. I'm not going to say it's Joe Milton strong, but I think we all know that is not the key to life. Okay, so Nico has a strong enough arm, has a more accurate arm. I think he's going to be an incredible player. Let me take a look at the message board. I don't want to leave you guys out. Travis says, I truly don't understand the non-coverage. It's mind-boggling. I'm a little bit of that as well, but I'm also fine with it because, trust me, I'm a Cowboys fan, and they get pubbed all the time, and they disappoint me. So I think you're better off trying to fly under the radar. I just don't think Tennessee's going to be flying under the radar after September. I think that's over. So Carson Beck's a plus 750 if you want to look at the odds to let me see the odds to win the Heisman Trophy, just for the record. Carson Beck's 750. Quinn Ewers is a plus 750. So you bet 100, you win plus 750. You win $750. Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, plus 1,000. Will Howard, Ohio State, plus 1,300. Then Nico, plus 1,500. So that's a top 5 realistic candidate. That's what the guys in Vegas think. And the guys in Vegas are going to be more right, than the guys at Lindy's. Love the magazine. The pictures are shiny.
Well, no, but you can understand why they do that. I mean, he's only started one game. And maybe if
this is your opportunity to do something and make a statement. If you're that magazine, do a little research. I don't want to turn this into bashing another media entity.
Okay, here's the thing. I got a guy, Jade Daniels, that just won the Heisman Trophy. Spectacular player at LSU. I watched him not in high school. I watched him in his previous college stop at Arizona State. And I did not see the player that Jaden Daniels became. I saw the player who in the open field was scary to try and tackle. But I didn't see the accuracy. So I didn't look at Jaden Daniels and think, oh my goodness, this guy's going to win a Heisman one day. Or this guy could be the number one pick. He evolved into that. And so there are a lot of guys like that. And I watch a lot of college football. There's some other guys out there that have a lot of potential that impress me. And you're right. We haven't talked that much about Nico's arm.
And that may be the best. That may be the best. He may be a better thrower than he is a runner.
Yeah, I think you don't want to try and convert him into Tim Tebow. You don't want to give him the ball on 4th and 1 every time. But I tell you what, even though he's not built for that kind of vicious contact at the line of scrimmage, he has the instincts to pick up that 4th and 1. So I just think he can. That ability to make big plays, he's got that, and running or passing, and I think that's so significant.
Yeah, I think Jake Merklinger needs to do some quarterback sneaks.
I'm your Huckleberry.
I think that he needs to be protect Nico a little bit. He is John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker. Coming up on the program, love breaking down the Vols. This day in Tennessee sports history, and also what's more likely, Alabama wins a conference title or Georgia wins it all. I think it's just so interesting that people have overlooked Nico. We'll get into that as well. Stay tuned. Do people really realize how good Nico Iamaleava is? More after this in 2 minutes with John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of course, Off the Hook Sports.
All-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
My guy Ahmad giving us some love. In my opinion, I think this show is the best Tennessee sports show, and that's including the entire national media. We appreciate that. Dave has that Tennessee aura or feel, as does John, who beat me as top columnist in the state, which I have not been able to completely let go of yet. It hurts, John. This is the second time I finished second in something that I really wanted to win. One was the writer of the sports writer of the year, and a gentleman won that out of Memphis. And it hurts that you would do that to me, that you would write at such a high level that I have no opportunity to win some awards, because you've won that award like 30 years in a row. But if you can live with yourself, that's fine.
Well, if you want it, and if you're willing to give me some NIL money, I could dummy things. I could dummy things down for next year.
Yeah, you've got so many awards. Why don't you just give me an award? I see some back there. Just throw one around. Well, you're probably using them for coasters at the Adams household. Hey, we don't want a ring on that coffee table. Will you please use my AP award?
Yeah, I've got one more spot where that black can go, and then I'm out of room.
All right. We were talking a little bit of Nico earlier. How long can he surprise the nation, or with the UTC, does this come out of the box? How do you see this season playing out for him?
Oh, I think he'll come out of the box right away. I think when anybody watches the guy play, like I said, he's just different. He gets your attention. Anybody who watches football is going to say, he's the kind of guy you watch and you say, man, I want to watch this guy play again. He's a crowd draw, I just think, because he's an unusual player. And so even though the opening opponent, that's certainly not a crowd draw, Chattanooga, but I think it will give Nico an opportunity to show what he can do. And I think people want to come back for more. So I think what we're going to have is going into the second game of the season. We're going to have a matchup that right now people might not think of as a big game. But I think when we get ready that week of the game, it will be a big game. And I don't know whom NC State plays in its opener. I assume it will be someone that it can beat by showing up. But you're going to have NC State, who's helped itself offensively with transfers, most notably Grayson McCall, passed for over 10,000 yards at Coastal Carolina. No, that doesn't equate to an SEC defense, but he's a really good player. He can run, he can pass, dual threat guy with a lot of experience. And I think a number of people have watched him play. So he's a good quarterback. So then you bring Nico into the mix on a neutral field. I think that's going to be a highly recognized game that people will be talking about and will want to watch, because I think there's a curiosity about Grayson McCall. He's been in college, seems like for 18 years, and now he did it in the Sun Belt. Can he do it against an SEC defense? So I think there's curiosity there. And then I think after you get an opening act of Nico, people will want to see more. I think that will be a really highly watched football game.
I think it's big for another reason. I think that Josh Heupel's excited about showing off this new cat that he's got. And I think that the UTC game is going to be just that. It's going to be roughly 15, 20 minutes of real-time football. Okay, so then it's over. So you don't really get to show him off there. NC State is going to get some more pub because it's a neutral site. It's they're going to have a lot of fans. They're going to travel. And I think that's where he explodes onto the scene. So I think people kind of have this hesitant, oh, he's kind of exciting. He might be good against Chattanooga. And then it comes out of the box on the following weekend. Let me ask you this question, John. Would you in any shape, form, or fashion try to hide or disguise some of the things that Nico does, or even conceal some things moving forward so you don't show the entire playbook? Want to point out the new shirt that I got here, pretty sharp, huh? It's brought to you by our friends at Apex Apparel. Man, this is awesome. The embroidery is fantastic. It's a Cutter and Buck shirt. That's a one-stop shop for all of your brand supply products, not just clothes, design, brand, product. I mean, it's all there for you. Call Tyler, 865-919-3001. Tyler, 865-919-3001. Mention Off the Hook Sports and get 15% off your first order. 15% off your first order. That is Apex Apparel Group Design. Tyler, right down below, 865-919-3001. And this is what they produce. Do you try to hide what Nico does at all? I mean, there have been situations. I remember the most famous would be Florida back in the 90s, John, where it seems like they always played Southwest Indiana State University the second. And they had an opportunity to really conceal some things and didn't show a lot before the Tennessee game. If you're Tennessee, do you try to do any of that at all against UTC or NC State?
No, you don't show perhaps everything against Chattanooga, but in terms of a player, there's no way to hide a 6'6" quarterback who people think, although he's only started one college game, is a Heisman candidate. There's no way to hide what he can do. And keep in mind, I mean, we're talking about maybe Nico has been slighted or people don't realize how good he is, but the odds makers realize how good he is. And you go back even further when he was a high school recruit. I mean, this guy, everybody, any football program worth its salt knew who Nico was. So I don't think there's any way that you surprise people with what he does. Now, scheme-wise, you always do things like that. You might not, show everything. I think Nico is going to play more in that Chattanooga game than you might expect. I think, I just, for a couple of reasons, I think Josh Heupel wants to give him reps. I mean, he's only got one college start going into the season. He wants to create more cohesiveness with his passing game, with the starting receivers, the quarterback. So even if this game gets out of hand, I still see Nico playing in the third quarter. I also think Josh Heupel likes points and yards. He really does. He wants to see Tennessee. I think it bothers Josh Heupel if Tennessee in the top 10 nationally in scoring and total offense. I remember a game, what year was that? Maybe 22.
You think he cares about numbers?
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
Can be either one, depending on how you go about it. I think Steve Spurrier, one of the greatest coaches of all time, cared about numbers. It doesn't mean it's a detriment. It doesn't mean he's out to run up the score on people. He's not thinking about an opponent. He's thinking about his team. He's got a reputation of offense, and I think he wants to remind you, yeah, I have a reputation for offense for a reason. And you go back to that 2022 season, Tennessee averaged 42, 43 points a game, led the nation in scoring, averaged 31 last year. That number has got to bother Josh Heupel. He doesn't want to score 31 points a game. He wants to score 41 points a game.
Well, there are obviously times where statistics can lie, but I'm with you. You'd rather have a quarterback that's at 225 quarterback ranking than 80. Okay, I think we can both agree with that. And I mean, but there are times statistics can lie. I thought that Tennessee's statistics were maybe just a little bit inflated in the 2022 season because I think Josh Heupel was having fun, quite frankly. But I want to ask you with Hendon Hooker's numbers. Hendon Hooker was number one in the SEC in rating with 175 over KJ Jefferson. And Bryce Young was third that year at 163. As far as the top end for Nico this season, could you see him being the top rated quarterback in the nation, or is efficiency asking a little bit too much in year number one? John, I want to get your take on that. Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Use the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED for 10% off. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. John, your thoughts on that?
I don't know if efficiency rating doesn't always tell you who the best quarterback is.
Well, Bryce Young is better than KJ Jefferson.
Yes, he is. I don't think that will spark a great debate among your followers. No, KJ's better. No, I don't. Do you know where KJ is now?
At a Golden Corral would be my guess. Too much? Too strong? Sorry about that. He's John Adams. Man,
He's a UCF.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
back for his ninth season.
He's a UGB.
Yeah, he's trying to get bigger.
Yeah.
Going
University of
inside.
Grand Buffet. He's trying to give 2 minutes with John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
John, this day in sports history, it was the flu game for Michael Jordan back in 1997 that helped lead the Bulls to a 88 Game 5 win over the Jazz in the finals. The flu game was probably the hangover game, I thought. But nevertheless, he fought through the hangover, so good for him. That was back in 1997. What are some of Tennessee's more valiant efforts that you've seen over the years, John? Any stick out? I would have to say I'm going to throw a couple out there. And one is going to be the ultimate warrior who fought through pains and injuries and everything that you could imagine. The guy was like the walking wounded, would be Billy Ratliff. Another one that I recall was Jason Mitchell playing with a torn ACL. Any balls or non-balls that stand out in your career that fought through something like MJ valiantly fought through a hangover?
Yeah. When you said hangover, one popped into my head was a player who played in a game, didn't think he would play. And I won't mention any names, but afterward he appeared to be.
You told me that story before. You thought he was stoned as a bat.
Yeah.
And I actually, at the time, followed up on that because I was curious. And I asked a guy, I said, how many people play? I asked a player this. I'm not going to tell you which school. I said, how many people play stoned? He said, stone, let's play. He said, about 20, 25%. And he said, but now practice. That was a little bit more. If they need help, though, I tell you who can help them if anybody gets in trouble for weed, which I think is legal now. But the guy that can help you would be Banks and Jones, the show represented by our good friend Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. John and I talk a lot, but I really don't know his thoughts on Alabama and Georgia. So I want to get into that right now. First, I'll remind you that you can win this Tony Vitello autographed College World Series baseball. I'm holding it up right there. And all you have to do is join Hooker's Corner. You can be a John. We would love to have you on board, as we will put the link, excuse me, right there in the message board here momentarily. But we would love for you to be a part of that. If you want to be in Hooker's Corner, fantastic. That would be great. And it's a great chance for us to interact with you more often. Very affordable, just $9.98 a month. And also we'll have some increased recruiting coverage as we continue to grow, and we're excited about that. So go ahead and sign up. Again, we're going to give away a t-shirt or a book later in the show today, and our grand prize for May, actually we're running a little bit behind, is going to be this Tony Vitello baseball, autographed by Tony Vitello. College World Series baseball will be autographed. We'll be giving that away on Friday, so be sure you are a part of the giveaway. All you got to do is sign up, get increased recruiting coverage as well. There's a lot of news and visitors. All right, John, what do you think of the University of Alabama's football program moving forward? Because obviously they're in a much different situation than they were a year ago.
Yeah, you go. I think first thought, Alabama's in much better shape replacing Nick Saban than it was replacing Bear Bryant. You're talking about two dynasty coaches, two coaches that are in the conversation. We talk about the greatest coach of all time. Alabama went with Ray Perkins. That didn't work out great the first time. I think Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach, and I think he'll have success at Alabama. However, we're talking about a really big transition here to go from Saban football to DeBoer football. Saban was more defense, although he had great offenses. DeBoer's more offense. It's just a different system. And I think that the transition might not go smoothly. You look at his track record, he's won at a high level, incredibly high level where he's been. So I think, he may prove me wrong. I think a lot of people think of Alabama as a college football playoff contender, as a conference championship contender. And I don't rate its chances quite that high. So I'm curious to see how it unfolds. But I do think Alabama is in much better shape this go-round than it was after Bear Bryant retired following the 1982 season.
I thought you were going to say for a second, this is a better replacement hire than when they hired Nick Saban to replace Mike Shula. You didn't go in that direction, which made a lot of sense. It's a pretty good replacement hire. It's interesting you compare it to it's very interesting to me you compare it to Paul Bear Bryant, because I'm curious, you have some perspective I don't. When a program loses its head coach, if you're an Alabama fan, how far do you expect it to fall? Because it's not going to be 7 national titles. I think if I'm an Alabama fan, I think fair expectations are be in the college football playoff 3 out of 4 years, win a conference championship 1 out of every 3 years. I think those are realistic expectations. Now, you've got Georgia out there, but Alabama's not going to want to take a back seat to Georgia. Ultimately, I think that's where this whole thing melts down, John, is DeBoer's going to have success, but it's not going to be enough to make Alabama fans happy.
Well, no. I mean, Nick Saban won, 6 national titles there?
Yes.
Bear Bryant won 6 there. I mean, they expect 6 national titles. That's how fans look at things. They look at the very best their program's ever accomplished and say that's the norm. Any coach at Alabama should win 6 national championships. Mike Shula, as you mentioned earlier, fell slightly short of those 6 national titles, but that's what Alabama fans expect. So I think they expect DeBoer to win a bunch of national titles. I mean, even if Nick Saban were still there, or if we brought back Bear Bryant, I think you would say it will be more difficult because you've got more playoff games now. You know, the one and done type situations, I think that makes it more difficult perhaps to win a national title.
No, fair. So what's more likely? Georgia wins a national title or Alabama wins a conference title? Brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. For over 40 years, Don and his company have built their business on taking care of their customers. Greater Chattanooga area. Call 396-2126. That's 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. That's donself.net. He can take care of you. And John, I ask you that question. I think that Georgia will win a national championship before Alabama wins a conference title because Georgia is in the same conference.
Yeah, I like Georgia's chances to win a national title better than I like Alabama's chances to win the SEC. I mean, Georgia under Kirby Smart is what Alabama once was under Nick Saban. It's the best thing going. And one of the things that sticks out to me with Georgia, it doesn't win every game, and I know it lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, a close game. Nick Saban lost some close games too along the way, like the big games. But you look at how Georgia performs in big games. Ole Miss had a good team last year. Georgia beat it, what was it, like 55-12 or something? It was a ridiculous score. It's like when Georgia goes out and is at its very best, nobody can hang with it. Ohio State did in that semifinal game in 22. I give Ohio State all the credit for that. It almost won the game. But when Georgia's at its best, I realize how undermanned Florida State was when it played Georgia in the Orange Bowl. All its players are opted out. But the margin of victory was still pretty dazzling. What was it, like 65-3 or something like that? I mean, when Georgia's at its best, it's as though there's no reining the Bulldogs in. They're just going to keep coming. It's going to be a beyond a rout. Go back to the national championship game against TCU after the 22 season. Now, everybody said, well, TCU, that was a fluke. It didn't belong. No, TCU had a really good year, was really good in the clutch, and beat Michigan with Jim Harbaugh in the playoff. And then he goes out there against Georgia, and then we got some kind of 65-7 type game. I mean, Georgia is scary under Kirby Smart.
I agree. I want to ask you this. What could be the one Achilles heel for Kirby Smart? Brought to you by our good friend Medicare Misty.
18 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Don't forget to support our sponsors. That's why we're here. John, what could keep Kirby Smart from having a Saban-like run? I mean, there are levels of champions. You win one championship, that's something. You win multiple, that's where Kirby is, that's something. But you start collecting them like baseball cards, by the way, Stop by Sports Treasures. That's a whole different level. Is there anything that can keep him from having that type of success?
I think it's more the playoff format. The fact that now you have 12 teams in there, you've got to play more games to win the national championship. Go back to last season when Georgia lost to Alabama in the SEC game. Close game, came down to the wire. Two of Georgia's key players, Brock Bowers at tight end, one of the best players in college football, and wide receiver Ladd McConkey, who I always thought he was a kind of underrated, terrific receiver, and big play guy, can break tackles, not that big, but still broke tackles. Those guys were difference makers, especially Brock Bowers. They weren't 100% for that game. If you've watched them throughout their career, you could understand that. So you get to play in more playoff games, more games overall. There's more of a chance of your superstar or star player not being 100%. And you get in these playoff games, you get Georgia versus Ohio State or Georgia versus Alabama. A player like that makes the difference. And so I think that would be, I just think that would be what might prove to be not Achilles' heel, but just an obstacle for Kirby Smart to overcome and winning. I don't think he's going to win 6 national titles. No.
Can I throw something at you that is totally speculation on my part? And if you want to call me an idiot, you can. I don't know if that'd be the first time or not. But I get the feeling that Kirby Smart's a burnout coach. I don't know why. And maybe I said the same thing about Nick Saban midway through his run. But just hearing some of his pregame speeches and the intensity, and he had some quotes recently about parents getting old was the worst thing that happens in life, one of the worst things. So it makes me think he's being introspective, which is unusual for a coach. So
highly unusual. Go ahead.
Kind of like a Dick Vermeil thing. I could see that happening with Kirby Smart. Now, I'm not talking about like tomorrow or next week, but I'm talking in 2 or 3 years that he kind of has a Spurrier moment where he's like, I just won 10 games at Georgia. I made the college football playoff, and you all don't think that's good enough. I'm out.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And he's the kind of guy I could see maybe like Nick Saban, where he would just Nick Saban, much longer career. Maybe Kirby, I don't think Kirby will go that long, but he might just say, have a moment and say, I'm done. There's just so much for a college football coach to handle now. NIL is certainly a factor. Transfers, you can't build the depth that Nick Saban could in his best days at Alabama or that Kirby can do at Georgia. I think those are factors. As far as the burnout go, I think Kirby really thrives on competition. I think that's his personality. He is so competitive and he gets so excited. And I think that's good for him. I don't think of it as, oh, he's done, he's burnt out. I think that's his nature. And so he's excitable, he's fired up. And I don't see that happening with him. I think it will be more like, what more can I do? I'm kind of getting tired of losing players to the portal. I'm kind of getting tired of all this NIL money. I don't like the way the game's going. I think that might be more of a factor than him burning out, because he is excitable, but I think he thrives on that. And I remember Nick Saban on the sidelines, how upset he would get and how angry would he get. I think he actually thrives on that. I think he makes
in all fairness, you're right. I mean, Nick Saban seemed like a fiery guy that could be a burnout coach. It just seems like at some point he got like over the hump where the dynasty was just kind of the dynasty and it was not running itself. He was obviously working very hard, but it just, and I don't know if maybe Kirby Smart gets to that point where it becomes a little bit easier. He has the right coaches in place, but nowadays, with the success he has and the fact that college coaches are going to want to go to the NFL, I think it's going to be tough to keep a staff together. That's another reason why I don't think he'll have the success that Nick Saban's had. In particular, his name escapes me, but their strength and conditioning coach, who Kirby finally pulled away from Alabama after years. I thought that was a very significant loss and part of the reason that Georgia surpassed Alabama. So it's just a different world, John. So I don't know that the consistency is going to be there long enough for him to win 7 championships total or 6 at Alabama like Saban did. But I wouldn't bet against him winning another one. That's for sure. If you had to put the over under, if I put the over under at 2.5 championships, would you take the over or under?
Oh, I'd take the over.
Oh, wow. Would you? That surprises me.
You're saying 2.5 more championships?
2.5 more national titles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably. No, I think he can win 2 more.
That's where I am. So
I mean, that would be, who else has done that other than Brian and Nick Saban? And again, I think it's because it's not that he's a lesser coach. I think he's a great coach. I just think it's going to be harder when you go through this playoff format.
Well, truth of that. All right. So he is John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker. I want to remind everybody, and it's on the message board, sign up for our Hooker's Corner. You can do that. We would love to have you a part of the program. What do you think of Georgia this upcoming year? John, we discussed Alabama a little bit. What are your thoughts on Georgia this year? I mean, obviously they're the favorite to win a national title again.
Yeah. I look at Georgia. I don't even think about the regular season. I look about it if it's in the playoffs. And the SEC game last year between Alabama was a playoff. I think those playoff games often come down to a great player making a great play. And I wonder if Georgia has enough of those kind of players. Does it have somebody that can do that? It may very well. But I think that's what it'll come down to. No team is, because of NIL and transfer portal, will have the quality of depth it once did. But I think Georgia will have as much as anybody. I like Carson Beck at quarterback. To me, the key could be Etienne, the running back. Is Trevor Etienne?
Yes, Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor, and Travis is his brother. Trevor, he's a tremendous player, a big play kind of guy. Georgia has some other good running backs who've had injury issues. It's got a good offensive line. I think Georgia will run the ball better this year than it did in the past. It doesn't have those roadblocks in the middle of the defensive front that some of its teams have had, but it's got really good players, and certainly in the secondary. So overall, I mean, I think this team is well equipped to win a national title. So it just might come down to keeping Carson Beck healthy, and injuries to other key players. You can't replace Brock Bowers, and that maybe is the only question I have about Carson Beck. Brock Bowers was at tight end. He wasn't really a tight end. He was one of those guys that really didn't have position. He just went out there and made plays. It didn't matter where you line him up. He doesn't have that security. Well, tight situation, 3rd and 8. I'm throwing the ball to Brock Bowers, and he'll get it. even if he's covered, he'll get it. Carson Beck doesn't have that this year, and I'll be interested to see how he adjusts to that.
You wouldn't usually say that the loss of a tight end would affect the standings in the SEC, but this is a pretty special tight end, so it certainly could. Want you to be a member of Hooker's Corner. You can get on the corner, be a John. We've already had somebody sign up during the program today. We greatly appreciate that. Ahmad says, let's sign up, guys. Let's help Dave out, Vol Nation. This show will be big time soon. We're already pretty close. Let's do our part. There is the baseball on your screen. Tony Vitello, College World Series Baseball. You also get a ton. Take just a second and listen to me. You get a ton of increased recruiting coverage. For instance, Tennessee not done recruiting in Oklahoma. Tennessee has a long history with Pacific players that start as Vols. You see all that on your screen. That is all extra content for just $9.98 a month. Plus, the awesome part about it is you're able to win great prizes like an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt or to celebrate 98 book. And we will actually give one of those away right now. So let me share the correct screen if I can possibly do that. As by the way, Caleb back next week. Congratulations on your boy, but you do a lot of stuff that is more difficult than I thought. All righty, so here we go. We're going to share the screen, John. I know there's a lot of buttons to hit. Am I doing okay?
I guess. There you go.
there's the wheel of good fortune. Here we go. Spinning the wheel. Who wins today? Joe won yesterday. I've been in touch with Joe. Smoky Mountain Red or Smoky Mountain Red is our winner. Congratulations, Smoky Mountain Red. I'll be in touch with you. Remember, you need to sign up. We greatly appreciate it, and you can win great prizes. We're giving them away daily this week because we were out last week, but moving forward, it will be every Friday, and we'll be joined by a special Vol every Friday that will. And also, I will learn how to press the correct buttons. John, do I have the correct buttons pressed? I do not because I cannot see you. Now I have.
There I am. Yeah. Dave, since you're hawking merchandise, how much would you give me for that Jeremy Pruitt autographed football?
I would actually like to drive by your house and get that football right now.
Well, let's talk how much.
Well, but here's the deal, John, and I want to be honest about this because, okay, I've got an autographed Des Bryant jersey that my wife just wears because it's Des Bryant. It's a Cowboys jersey, so she just wears it on game day. I'm going to throw your football with my son. I'm not going to savor it like an autographed football because it's Jeremy Pruitt. And I need a good football. Good footballs are like $69, $70, $79. I mean, I've needed a good football.
This isn't a good football.
Oh.
It can't be because it's got Jeremy Pruitt's name on it. How can it be a good football?
John just fumbled that football. He is John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook